Hey, welcome back to Adult Brain Audiobooks. I'm Graham, one of the narrators here. We're doing an experimental live read. I think this is probably our third one in this book. We are on chapter 3 of Amulets, Charms, and Enchantments, and this is the MAGUS, or Celestial Intelligencer, being a complete system of occult philosophy from 1801. It's written by Francis Barrett. It's going to seem very, superstitious to some, but it's pretty interesting here. We've been through a few chapters, so I'm just going to share my screen here and read it and edit it as I go. So this is rough and raw, and hopefully I can do it fairly smoothly and not have too many gaps. But I am gonna. These are short chapters, so we're going to try to do like chapter 3 to 9 here. So I'm going to leave pretty big gaps between the chapters where I'll just have to be silent. And then I can just easily edit out later. So let's give it a shot here and see how it goes. Share the screen. And there we go. This is chapter 3. I'm still using an old PDF. I might have to switch it to a better format. I do have some other versions of it, but I thought this kind of seems appropriate. I was going to scroll up to the title page, but actually, yeah, let's just show the title page here for a sec, because the title page is pretty interesting. So I'm on page 32 here, 30 here. This is going back to there's the main title that I read, and here's there's Francis Barrett, and there's the subtitle. In 3 books, The Science of Natural Magic, the constellatory practice, magnetism, Cabalistic ceremonial magic. It's pretty interesting how they did their titles like that back then. There's all the chapters. So I'll just get back to where we were here, page 30. This is just book 1. It's a fairly short book. But then there's an alchemy version as well afterwards. And there's also book 2, and then there's the biographies of a bunch of alchemists and magicians at the end, which would be cool to add into this tome. So it's going to be a while, but I'm going to pick away at it. See how it goes here. So wish me luck. Chapter 3 of Amulets, Charms, and Enchantments. The instrument of enchantment. Oh, see, I already messed it up. I'm going to scroll up, make that bigger. The instrument of enchanters is a pure, living, breathing spirit of the blood, whereby we bind or attract those things which we desire or delight in, so that by an earnest intention of the mind, we take possession of the faculties in a no less potent manner than strong wines beguile the reason and senses of those who drink them. Therefore, to charm is either to bind with words, in which there is a great virtue, as the poet sings, words thrice she spake, which caused at will sweet sleep, appeased the troubled waves and roaring deep. Indeed, the virtue of man's words are so great that when pronounced with fervent constancy of the mind, they are able to subvert nature, to cause earthquakes, storms, and tempests. I have in the country, by only speaking a few words, and used some other things, caused terrible rains and claps of thunder. Almost all charms are impotent without words, because words are the speech of the speaker, and the image of the thing signified or spoken of. Therefore, whatever wonderful better redo that quickly. Old World Michigan is here. Hey there. Thank you. Where was I? Oh, I got to change the speaker to come into my headphones too. This will be interesting. And the image of the thing signified or spoken of. Scroll up a little bit here. Hey, Caged Reality, thank you. Therefore, whatever wonderful... I can't get that. Therefore, whatever wonderful effect is intended, let the same be performed with the addition of words significative of the will or desire of the I'm going to have to redo that. Therefore, whatever wonderful effect is intended, let the same be performed with the addition of words significative of the will or desire of the operator. For words are a kind of occult vehicle of the image conceived or begotten and sent out of the body by the soul. Therefore, all the forcible power of the spirit ought to be breathed out with vehemency and an arduous and intent desire. And I know how to speak and convey words together so as they may be carried onward to the hearer at a vast distance, no other body intervening, which thing I have done often. Words are also oftentimes delivered to us seemingly by others in our sleep, whereby we seem to talk and converse. But then no vocal conversations are of any effect except they proceed from spiritual and occult causes. Such spirits have often manifested singular things to me, while in sleep, the which in waking I have thought not of, until conviction of the truth taught me credulity in such like manners. And in the late change of administration, I knew at least 5 days before it actually terminated that it would be as I described to a few of my friends. These things are not alike manifested to everyone, only, I believe, to those who have long seriously attended to contemplations of this abstruse nature. But there are those who will say that it is not so, merely because they themselves cannot comprehend such things. However, not to lose time, we proceed. There are various enchantments which I have proved relative to common occurrences of life, viz., a kind of binding to that effect which we desire, as to love or hatred, or to those things we love, or against those things we hate, in all which it. Thank you, Caged Reality. Faker money for the great work. Thanks, buddy. Or to those things we love, or against those things we hate. Or to those. I'm going to redo that part there. Where was I? Or to those things we love, or against those things we hate, in all which there is a magical sympathy above the power of reasoning. Therefore, those abstruse matters we feel are convinced of and reflect upon and draw them into our use. I will here set down, while speaking of these things, a very powerful amulet for the stopping immediately of bloody flux, for the which, with the faith, I dare lay down my life for the success and entire cure. An amulet for flux of blood. In the blood of Adam arose death. In the blood of Christ, death is extinguished. In the same blood of Christ, I command thee, O blood, that thou stop fluxing. Note, I'm just going to read a note here with an echo. Let the party who pronounces these words hold the other's hand. Just to distinguish that on the audio version only. In this one godly superstition, there will be found a ready, cheap, easy remedy for that dreadful disorder, the bloody flux, whereby a poor, miserable wretch will reap more real benefit than in a whole shop of an apothecary's drugs. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Oh, there comes the cat. Cat's off my lap. Oh, you know what? Now I gotta take a. Oh, Aleph. What are those 4 Hebrew letters again? Let me see if I can copy. These aren't going to copy over. I should have had this ready. The Aleph, Kaf. Let me just check this out here quickly because this is an important part. Let's see what my assistant has to say about this. I used to have a cheat sheet that I would look up all the Hebrew letters and their pronunciations, but there's so many different variations. It's hard to Yod He Vav Yod He Vav He. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Carries drugs. These four letters, Yod He Vav He, are a powerful charm or amulet against the common og. Likewise, let them be written upon a piece of clean and new vellum at any time of the day or night, and they will be found a speedy and certain cure, and much more efficacious than the word abracadabra. However, as the ancient charm is still, amongst some who pretend to cure ogs, etc., in some repute, I will here set down the form and manner of its being written. Likewise, it must be pronounced or spoken in the same order as it is written, with the intent or will of the operator declared at the same time of making it. Note, isn't this, hang on a sec, isn't this interesting, eh? The abracadabra, how it's just been cartoonified in the 20th century, and yet here it is in a book from basically written in the 1700s. It is here to be particularly noticed by us that in forming of a charm or amulet, it will be of no effect except the very soul of the operator is strongly and intensely exerted and impressed, as it were, and the image of the idea sealed on the charm or amulet. For without this, in vain will be all the observation of times, hours, and constellations. Therefore, this I have thought fit to mention once for all, that it may be almost always uppermost in the mind of the operator. For without this one thing being observed and noticed, many who form seals, etc., do fall short of the wished for effect. They have written here the triangle of abracadabra, abracadabra across the top, all the A's on a right angle down to the right, and then abracadabra with one letter missing in each word all the way down, which says abracadabra on the angle there. Okay, where was I? I had the note. So that's it for that. Now we're in the chapter 4. Chapter 4 of Unctions, Philters, Potions, etc., their magical virtues. Unguents or unctions, collieries, philters, etc., conveying the virtues of things natural to our spirits, do multiply, transform, transfigure, and transmute it accordingly. They also transpose those virtues which are in them into it, so that it not only acts upon its own body, but also upon that which is near it, and affects that by visible rays, charms, and by touching it, with some agreeable quality like to itself. For because our spirit is the pure, subtle, lucid, airy, and unctuous vapor of the blood, nothing therefore is better adapted for collyriums and the like vapor, which are more suitable to our spirit in substance. For then by reason of their likeness do they more stir up, attract, and transform the spirit. The same virtue have other ointments and confections. Hence by the touch often plague, sickness, faintings, poisonings, and love is induced, either by hands or clothes being anointed, and often by kissing, things being held in the mouth, love is likewise excited. Now the sight, as it perceives more purely and clearer than the other senses, seals in us the marks of things more acutely, and does most of all and before all others agree with our fantastic spirit, as it is apparent. Check. Just got to readjust here. Check. As is apparent in dreams, when things seem do more often present themselves to us than things heard or anything coming under the other senses. Therefore, when collyriums transform the visual spirits, that spirit easily affects the imagination, which, being affected with diverse species and forms, transmits the same by the same spirit unto the outward sense of light, by which there is formed in it a perception of such species and forms, in that manner as if it were moved by external objects, that there appear to be seen terrible images, spirits, and the like. There are some coloriums which make us see the image of spirits in the air or elsewhere, which I can make of the gall of a man. Check. Let me just double check that. This is pretty interesting stuff. The blood, which I can make. There we go. Just going to scroll up while I stop here. Which I can make of the gall of a man and the eyes of a black cat and some other things. And the eye of newt. Throw that in there. The same is made likewise of the blood of a lapwing, bat, and a goat. And if a smooth, shining piece of steel be smeared over with the juice of mugwort, and be made to fume, it causes invocated spirits to appear. There are some perfumes or suffumigations and unctions which make men speak in their sleep, walk, and do those things which are done by men that are awake, and often what, when awake, they cannot or dare not do. Others again make men horrid and delightful sounds. Others again make men make men hear. Others again make men hear horrid or delightful sounds, noises, and the like. And in some measure, this is cause why mad and melancholy men believe they hear and see. Let me redo that one. It's always weird. These old books have backwards sentences. And in some measure, this is the cause why men, mad. And in some measure, this is the cause why mad and melancholy men believe they hear and see things equally false and improbable, falling into most gross and pitiful delusions, fearing where no fear is, and angry where there is none to contend. Such passions as these we can induce by magical vapors, confections, perfumes, colories, unguents, potions, poisons, lamps, lights, etc. Likewise by mirrors, images, enchantments, charms, sounds, and music. Also by diverse rites, observations, ceremonies, religions, etc. Chapter 5 of Magical Suspensions and Allegations, shewing how and by what power they receive virtue and are efficacious in natural magic. When the soul of the world by its virtue doth make all things that are naturally generated or artificially made fruitful by sealing. Of course, I'm burping. I'm going to just cheat. No, I better redo that. It's bad in the middle of a sentence to start over here. I'll just redo that whole thing. Check. When the soul of the world by its virtue doth make all things that are naturally generated or artificially made fruitful by sealing and impressing on them celestial virtues for the working of some wonderful effect, then things themselves not only applied by colliery or suffume or ointment or any other such like way, but when they are conveniently bound to or wrapped up or suspended about the neck or any other way applied, although by ever so easy a contact, they do impress their virtue upon us. By these allegations, etc., therefore, the accidents of the body and mind are changed into sickness or health, valor, fear, sadness, or joy, and the like. They render those that carry them gracious, terrible, acceptable, rejected, honored, beloved, or hateful, and abominable. Now, these kind of passions are conceived to be infused no otherwise than is manifest in the grafting of trees, where the vital life and virtue is communicated from the trunk to the twig and grafted into it by way of contact and alligation. So in the female palm tree, when she comes near to the male, her boughs bend to the male, which the gardener seeing, he binds them together by ropes across, but soon becomes straight, as if by the continuation of the rope she had received a propagating virtue from the male. And it is said, if a woman takes a needle and bewray it with dung, and put it up in the earth in which the carcass of a man has been buried, and carry it about her in a piece of cloth used at a funeral, No man can defile her as long as she carries that. Now, by these examples, we see how by certain allegations of certain things, also suspensions, or by the most simple contact or continuation of any thread, we may be able to receive some virtues thereby. But it is necessary to know the certain rule of magical allegation and suspension. And the manner that the art requires is this, viz., that they must be done under a certain and suitable constellation, and they must be done with wire or silken threads or sinews of certain animals, and those things that are to be wrapped up are to be done in the leaves of herbs, or skins of animals, or membranous parchments, etc. For if you would procure the solary virtue of anything, this is to be wrapped up in bay leaves or the skin of a lion, hung around the neck with gold, silk, or purple or yellow thread, while the sun reigns in the heavens, so shalt thou be endued with the virtue of that thing. So if a saturnine quality or thing be desired, thou shalt in like manner take that thing while Saturn reigns and wrap it up in the skin of an ass, or in a cloth used at a funeral, especially if melancholy or sadness is to be induced, and with a sad or ash or leaden or black silk or thread, hang it about thy neck. And so in the same manner we must proceed with the rest. Chapter 6 of Antipathies. It is necessary in this place to speak of the antipathies of natural things, seeing it is requisite, as we go on, to have a thorough knowledge of that obstinate contrariety of nature, where any such thing shuns its. I'm going to just cheat on this sentence and cut it in half. I shouldn't do this, but that's a pretty good spot. Where anything shuns its contrary and drives it, as it were, out of its presence, such antipathy as this has the root rhubarb against choler, treacle against poison, the sapphire stone against hot bites, feverish heats and disease of the eyes, the amethyst against drunkenness, the jasper against the bloody flux and offensive imaginations, the emerald and agnus castus against lust, acats or agates against poison, peony against the falling sickness, coral against the ebullition of black choler and pains of the stomach, the topaz against spiritual heats, such as are covetousness. I got to try and keep that record level up because it's not giving me the same as the YouTube. Where did I stop there? Spiritual heat. Spiritual heat. Spiritual heat. The topaz against spiritual heats, such as are covetousness, lust, and all manner of love excesses. The same antipathy is there also of pismaries against herb organ, and the wing of a bat, and the heart of a lapwing, from the presence of which they fly. Also the organ is contrary to certain poisonous fly, which cannot resist the sun, and resists salamanders, and loathes cabbage with such a deadly hatred that they cannot endure each other. So they say cucumbers hate oil, and the gall of a crow makes even men fearful, and drives them from the place wherein it is placed. A diamond disagrees with a lodestone. That being present, it suffers no iron to be drawn to it. Sheep avoid frog parsley as a deadly thing. And what is more wonderful, nature hath depictured the sign of this antipathy upon the livers of sheep, in which the very figure of frog parsley doth naturally appear. Again, goats hate garden basil, as if there was nothing more pernicious. And amongst animals, mice and weasels disagree. So a lizard is of a contrary nature to a scorpion, and induces great terror to the scorpion with its very sight. And they are therefore killed with the oil of them, which oil will likewise cure the wounds made by scorpions. There is a great enmity between scorpions and mice. Therefore, if a mouse be applied to the bite of a scorpion, he cures it. Nothing is so much an enemy to snakes as crabs. And if swine be hurt by them, they are cured by crabs. The sun, also being in Cancer, serpents are tormented. Also the scorpion and crocodile kill one another. And if the bird ibis does but touch a crocodile with one of his feathers, he makes him unmovable. The bird called a bustard flies away at the sight of a horse, and a hart at the sight of a ram or a viper. An elephant trembles at the hearing of the grunting of a hog. So doth a lion at the crowing of a cock. And a panther will not touch them that are anointed with the fat of a hen, especially if garlic has been put into it. There is also an enmity between foxes and swans, bulls and jackdaws. And some birds are at a perpetual variance, as daws and owls, kites and crows, turtle and ringtail, Aegipus and eagles, also harts and dragons. Amongst water animals, there is a great antipathy between dolphins and whirlpools, the mullet and pike, lamprey and conger, porcontrel and lobster, which latter being, but seeing the former, is nearly struck dead with fear. But the lobster tears the conger. The civet cat cannot resist the panther. And if the skins of both be hung up against each other, the skin or hairs of the panther will fall off. Apollo says in his hieroglyphics, if any one but Apollo, all of a sudden Apollo's in the game. Apollo says in his hieroglyphics, if anyone be girt about with the skin of a civet cat, he may pass safe through his enemies. The lamb flies from the wolf, and if the tail, skin, or head of lupus be hung up in the sheep's cot, they cannot eat their meat for very fear. And Pliny mentions the bird called the marlin that breaks the egg of the crow, whose young are annoyed by the fox, that she also will pinch the whelps. That she also will pinch the whelps of the fox. Get all these burps out of me. That she also will pinch the whelps of the fox, and the fox likewise, which when the crow sees, they help the fox against her as against a common enemy. The linnet lives and eats thistles, yet she hates the ass because he eats the thistles and flowers of them. There is so great an enmity between the little bird called Essalon and the ass that their blood will not mix, and that at the simple braying of the ass, both the Essalon's eggs and young perish together. There is also a total antipathy of the olive tree to the harlot, that if she plant it, it will neither thrive nor prosper, but wither. A lion fears lighted torches, and is tamed by nothing sooner. Mocha. Mocha. Oh boy. Sorry, the cat is interrupting me. Mocha. Okay, here we go. The wolf fears not sword or spear, but a stone, by the throwing of which a wound being made, worms breed in the wolf. A horse fears a camel so much that he cannot endure the picture of that beast. An elephant, when he rages, is quieted by seeing a cock. A snake is afraid of a naked man, but pursues one clothed. A mad bull is tamed by being tied to a fig tree. Amber attracts all things to it but garden basil, and things smeared with oil between which there is natural antipathy. Chapter 7. Of the occult virtues of things which are inherent in them only in their lifetime, and such as remain in them even after death. It is expedient for us to know that there are some things which retain virtue only while they are living, others even after death. So in the colic, if a live duck be applied to the belly, it takes away the pain, and the duck dies. If you take the heart out of any animal and while it is warm, bind it to one that has quartan fever, it drives it away. So if anyone shall swallow the heart of a lapwing, swallow, weasel, or a mole, while it is yet living and warm with natural heat, it improves his intellect and helps him to remember, understand, and foretell things to come. Hence, this general rule that whenever things are taken for magical uses from animals, whether they are stones, members, hair, excrements, nails, or anything else, they must be taken from those animals while they are yet alive, and if it is possible, that they may live afterwards. If you take the tongue of a frog, you put the frog into water again. And Democritus writes that if anyone shall take out the tongue of a water frog, no other part of the animal sticking to it, and lay it upon the place where the heart beats of a woman, she is compelled against her will to answer whatsoever you shall ask of her. Also take the eyes of a frog, which must be extracted before sunrise, and bound to the sick party. And the frog to be let again go blind into the water, the party shall be cured of tertian ague. Also the same will, being bound with the flesh of a nightingale and the skin of a hart, keep a person always wakeful without sleeping. Also the roe of the fork fish being bound to the navel, it is said to cause women an easy childbirth, if it be taken from it alive, and the fish put into the sea again. So the right eye of a serpent being applied to the soreness of the eyes cures the same if the serpent be let go alive. So likewise the tooth of a mole being taken out alive and afterwards let go cures the toothache. And dogs will never bark at those who have the tail of a weasel that has escaped. Democritus says that if the tongue of the chameleon be taken alive, it conduces to good success in trials, and likewise to women in labor. But it must be hung up some part. I'm just going to redo that quickly. Scroll up while I can. But it must be hung up on some part of the outside of the house. Otherwise, if brought into the house, it might be most dangerous. There are very many properties that remain after death, and these are things in which the idea of matter is less swallowed up, according to Plato, in them. Even after death, that which is immortal in them will work some wonderful things, as in the skins we have mentioned of several wild beasts, which will corrode and eat one another after death. Also, a drum made of the rocket fish drives away all creeping things at what distance soever the sound of it is heard. And the strings of an instrument made of the guts of a wolf, and being strained upon a harp or lute with strings made of sheep guts, will make no harmony. That is interesting about the drum. I mean, you could kind of see how the resonance of a musical instrument made of a certain type of animal might work for keeping some creeping things away, but I don't know. The rest of it seems pretty obscure. Chapter 8 of the wonderful virtues of some kind of precious stones. It is a common opinion of magicians that stones inherit great virtues, which they receive through the spheres and activity of the celestial influences by the medium of the soul or spirit of the world. Authors very much disagree in respect of the probability of their actually having such virtues and potentia, some debating warmly against any occult or secret virtue lying hid in them, others as warmly shewing the causes and effects of these sympathetic properties. However, to leave these trifling arguments to those who love cavil and contentions better than I do, and as I have neither leisure nor inclination to enter the lists with sophists and tongue philosophers, I say that these occult virtues are disposed throughout the animal, vegetable, and mineral kingdoms by seeds or ideas originally emanating from the divine mind, and through supercelestial spirits and intelligence always operating according to their proper offices and governments allotted them, which virtues are infused, as we said before, through the medium of the universal spirit, as by a general and manifest sympathy and antipathy established in the law of nature. Amongst a variety of examples, the lodestone is one most remarkable proof of the sympathy and antipathy we speak of. However, to hasten to the point, amongst stones, those which resemble the rays of the sun by their golden sparklings, as does the glittering stone atites, prevent the falling sickness and poisons if worn on the finger. So if the stone, I'm just going to go make a comment about this. What a good name that is, a tongue philosopher. He doesn't want to. He doesn't have leisure to enter the lists with sophists and tongue philosophers. Worn on the finger. It's crazy, how popular these stones have been, and they have reasons why nowadays you got all the new age Bible, crystal Bibles, and all that. I wonder if it matches with a lot of what these guys say. Where is it? If worn on the finger. Okay, there we go. Scroll up. Oculus Solis. Oculus. So the stone, which is called Oculus Solis, or eye of the sun, being in figure like to the apple of the eye, from which the shines. I'm going to redo that completely. So the stone, which is called Oculus Solis, or eye of the sun, being in figure like to the apple of the eye, from which shines forth a ray, comforts the brain and strengthens sight. The carbuncle, which shines by night, hath a virtue against all airy and vaporous poisons. The chrysolite stone, of a light green color, when held against the sun, there shines in it a ray like a star of gold. This is singularly good for the lungs and cures asthmatic complaints. And if it be bored through and the hollow filled with the mane of an ass and bound to the left arm, it chases away all foolish and idle imaginations and melancholy fears, and drives away folly. The stone called iris, which is like crystal in color, being found with 6 corners, when held in the shade and the sun suffered to shine through it, represents a natural rainbow in the air. The stone heliotropium green, like a jasper or emerald, beset with red specks, makes the wearer constant, renowned, and famous, and conduces to long life. There is likewise another wonderful property in this stone, and that is that it so dazzles the eyes of men that it causes the bearer to be invisible. But then there must be applied to it the herb bearing the same name, viz. Heliotropium, or the sunflower. And these kind of virtues Albertus Magnus and William of Paris mention in their writings. The jacinth also possesses virtue from the sun against poisons, pestilences, and pestiferous vapors. Likewise, it renders the bearer pleasant and acceptable, conduces also to gain money. Stop. Which one was that again? The jacinth? No. Huh. The jacinth helps you gain money. Being simply held in the mouth, it wonderfully cheers the heart and strengthens the mind. Pyrophilus, 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 pyrophilus. What's it gonna be? I gotta check with my assistant on this one. Pyrophilus or pyrophilus? Any guesses? Pyrophilus. 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 Here, what is my assistant is saying? He's awaiting for me if I need any pronunciation help. Pyrophilus. 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 All right, Pyrophilus. Where was I? Then there is the Pyrophilus, a red mixture which Albertus Magnus reports that Asclepius makes mention of in one of his epistles to Octavius Caesar, saying, "There is a certain poison so intensely cold which preserves the heart of man, being taken out from burning, so that if it be put into the fire for any time, it is turned into a stone, which stone is called Pyrophilus." Obviously, pyro being, pyro from fire being in there. In the word, it possesses a wonderful virtue against poison, and it infallibly renders the wearer thereof renowned and dreadful to his enemies. Apollonius is reported to have found a stone called Pantora, which will attract other stones as the lodestone does iron, most powerful against all poisons. It is spotted like the panther, and therefore some naturalists have given this stone the name of Pantherus. Aaron calls it Evanthum, and some, on account of its variety, call it Pantocras. Chapter 9. Of the mixtures of natural things one with another, and the producing of monstrous animals by the application of natural magic. Oh, this should be fun. Getting into chimeras and hybrids and half man, half beasts, I wonder. And this is probably the last chapter today. Magicians, students, and observers of the operations of nature know how, by the application of active forms of a matter fitly disposed and made, as it were, a proper recipient, to effect many wonderful and uncommon things that seem strange and above nature, by gathering this and that thing beneficial. Oh, that was a long sentence, too. Come on. Oh, beneficial. I'm going to get that wrong again. I can tell. I want to. I don't want to manifest that, but all right. I guess I just have to redo the whole sentence. Sorry about that, man. This is too much. Where did it start? Beneficial, and conducive. Beneficial. Magicians, students, and observers of the operations of nature know how, by the applications of active forms to a matter fitly disposed, and made, as it were, a proper recipient, to effect many wonderful and uncommon things that seem strange and above nature, by gathering this and that thing beneficial and conducive to that effect which we desire. However, it is evident that all the powers and virtues of the inferior bodies are not found comprehended in any one single thing, but are dispersed amongst many of the compounds here amongst us. Wherefore it is necessary, if there be 100 virtues of the sun dispersed through so many animals, plants, metals, or stones, we should gather all these together and bring them all into one form, in which we shall see all the said virtues, being united, contained. Now there is a double virtue in commixing, one, viz., which was once planted in its parts and is celestial. The other is obtained by a certain artificial mixture of things, mixed among themselves according to a due proportion, such as agree with the heavens under a certain constellation. And this virtue descends by a certain similitude or likeness that is in things amongst themselves, by which they are drawn or attracted towards their superiors, and as much as the following do by degrees correspond with them that go before, where the patient is fitly applied to its agent. So from a certain composition of herbs, vapors, and such like, made according to the rules of natural and celestial magic, there results a certain common form, of which we shall deliver the true and infallible rules and experiments in our second book, where we have written expressly on the same. We ought likewise to understand that by how much more noble and excellent the form of anything is, by so much the more it is prone and apt to receive and powerful to act. Then the virtue of things do indeed become wonderful. These, when they are applied to matters mixed and prepared in fit seasons to give them life, by procuring life for them from the stars, our own spirit powerfully cooperating therewith. For there is so great a power in prepared matters, which we see do then receive life, when a perfect mixture of quantities, qualities, not quantities, that's a big mistake. For there is so great a... Okay, I just got to readjust here. Check. For there is so great a power in prepared matters, which we see do then receive life, when a perfect mixture of qualities do break the former contrariety. For so much the more perfect life things receive, by as much the temper and composition is free from contrariety. Now the heavens, as a prevailing cause, do, from the beginning of everything, to be generated by the concoction and perfect digestion of the matter, together with life, bestows celestial influences and wonderful gifts, according to the capacity that is in that life and sensible soul to receive more noble and sublime virtues. For the celestial virtue otherwise lies asleep, as sulphur kept from flame, but in living bodies it doth always burn, as kindled sulphur, which by its vapor fills all the places that are near. There is a book called A Book of the Laws of Pluto, which speaks of monstrous generations which are not producing according to the laws of nature. JL says, thank you. This book is interesting for sure. I wonder all the animals mentioned are still around. Yeah, that's interesting. Probably. It's only been a couple hundred years. Well, yeah, 225 years. To make sure, take all my grandgirls tadpole hunting. Blessings to all. Yeah, thanks, JL. Good luck hunting. Good luck hunting tadpoles. I wonder if the book has anything about tadpoles. Take take the eye of a frog with you, ground up into a powder. Maybe that'll help. There is a book called A Book of the Laws of Pluto, which speaks of monstrous generations, which are not produced according to the laws of nature. Of these things which follow we know to be true. These of worms are generated gnats, of a horse, wasps, of a calf and ox, bees. Take a living crab, his legs being broken off, and he buried under the earth, a scorpion is produced. If a duck be dried into powder and put into water, frogs are soon generated. But if he be baked in a pie and cut into pieces and be put in a moist place underground, toads are generated. Of the herb garden basil, bruised and put between two stones, are generated scorpions. Of the hairs of a menstruous woman, put under dung, are bred serpents. And the hair of a horse's tail put into water receives life, and is turned into a most pernicious worm. And there is an art wherewith a hen, sitting upon eggs, may be generated the form of a man, which I myself know how to do, and which magicians call the mandrake, and it hath in wonderful virtues. You must therefore know which and what kind of matters are either of art or nature, begun or perfected, or compounded of more things, and what celestial influences they are able to receive. For a congruity of natural things is sufficient for the receiving of influence from celestial, because nothing hindering the celestials send forth their light upon inferiors. They suffered, excuse me, they suffered, they suffer no matter to be destitute of their virtue. Wherefore, as much matter as is perfect and pure is, as we said before, fitted to receive celestial influences. For that is the binding and continuing of the matter of the soul to the world, which doth daily flow in upon things natural, and all things which natural. Whoops, my cursor was in the way. Good job. Which doth daily flow in upon things natural, and all things. Just got to go back to that semicolon there. For that is the binding. For that is. Oh, more cats are coming to bug me. For that is the binding and continuing of the matter of the soul to the world, which doth daily flow in upon things natural, and all things which nature hath prepared, that it is impossible that a prepared matter should not receive life, or a more noble form. All right. Thanks for watching and listening and being here. You can support our channel. Just we got everything on Spotify and Audible, a whole awesome library of books, not just me narrating, but others as well. And check out the live tab for the rest of this live stuff. And obviously share the channel, like and subscribe and all that stuff. We've got a whole library of books in here too. So I'm gonna keep picking away at this tomorrow. Get into the alchemy part and then book 2 afterwards. So thank you for being here, and I will stop sharing my screen now. And yeah, um, I'll see you tomorrow. Happy Mother's Day for all you mothers out there.